What's up, guys? Welcome to live stream number 2. It is fairly early in the morning, Saturday here in Australia, 8:40 a.m. at the moment, a little bit late on this start time, so apologies for that. A couple of people in the comments already. Ekanch, Alex, lover of tech, hey guys, how you going? And others as well. Say what's up if you're in the comments, if you're watching live. Let me know what's happening, where you're watching from. Always interested in that. Awesome. So it's 11:40 in Europe, Raphael. Yeah, big time difference there. 11 p.m. Right, okay. Arnold, hey mate, how are ya? So as you can see by today's title, the main reason for doing this live stream today is to talk about this phone here, the Essential phone. If you've been watching my channel for the last few weeks, you probably know that I switched over to using this as my main flagship, as my main primary device for my daily use. And so I wanted to let you guys know, because I seem to get asked this comment in several of my videos. Is this phone still worth buying this late into 2018? And even I want to answer whether I think it's going to be worth buying next year as well, because the device is certainly fairly polarizing. When it was initially released, particularly, it got quite a bit of bad press, but since then lots of price drops and whatnot have made this device a little more interesting and making it another conversation altogether. Just checking out the chat before I continue. Damien from London, hello. Smiked, how are ya? Ekanch says, you can call me E. Thank you, I appreciate that let off. Frame rate looks like 20 FPS rather than 24. 142 in Lebanon, Smiked. Awesome. Thank you for watching, I appreciate you tuning in. Okay, so hopefully it's looking good. The stream, I am now switched around. This is actually the backdrop. I'm sitting in the backdrop of where my last live stream was recorded from, and that's so that, as I mentioned in that video, I wanted to do it off my PC this time so that we could have a little bit more reliability. So that's what we're doing here. Hopefully it's looking good from your end. We're also on the 50mm lens, the Canon 50mm lens, which I mentioned in my last video as well, and obviously still going into the Sony a7S II, running into the Cam Link into my PC, and then through OBS. Awesome. Okay, Luke. Yeah, how do I say that? Sakara from Tanzania, and then Abdi. Awesome. Good to see you're all here, guys. So let's get straight into chatting about the Essential phone, and then afterwards I'll open it up for a bit of a Q&A as well. So, cool. Sound is in check and frame rate is looking much better. Awesome. Alex, what's up? Aaron. Cool, let's get into it, guys. So, the Essential phone, that's what we're talking about for the first little part of this stream. And I firstly want to talk about why this phone is still worth potentially the conversation, at least, around whether it's worth buying. And the reason for that, I'm just going to jump over to the browser here, is that initially when it was launched, you can see now it's a lot cheaper, but initially when it was launched, it was $699 US, and that is up there with the premium tier of flagship costs. And since then, it's gone through some significant price drops. And now you can see on Amazon, the Halo Grey is only $310 US, which is pretty phenomenal. And that makes it a lot more interesting, and it's certainly in line with even, the recent Poco phone that was released. It's almost half the price of OnePlus flagships, and certainly probably the upcoming OnePlus 6T might be double the cost of this Essential phone now. Now, obviously, when it was initially released, $699, you're expecting a very high quality phone, and there were a few things that were missing from this device, or that weren't so great about this device, that definitely made it not worth that price point, in my opinion. But yeah, for $310 US, it's another conversation altogether. And so there's a few things that I want to talk about, some pros, some cons, and then again, we'll go to a bit of a Q&A. All right, I'm just taking a quick look at the comments as well. Good to see you guys all here. And yeah, so let's just jump back to my main camera for a moment. So yeah, so the first thing to talk about is the fact that this phone has a pretty phenomenal design. You guys have, well, a lot of you have anyway been noticing it in my recent top Android apps and best Nova Launcher setups videos. And yeah, it is a really, really impressive design, given that it was released a year ago. And I think that it was a year ahead of the pack. Obviously, it was the first to do the notch trend, and the iPhone followed shortly after. Now, this sort of bezel-less thing that we see here on this phone, we did see that with other devices. So the first link I want to show you here, this is the Xiaomi Mi Mix, and they had a very sleek looking device as well that was released, yeah, at a similar time, or at least a version of this device was, you would have seen, released even well before the Essential phone. And their solution to the whole notch thing was to put the camera down the bottom right of the device, which is a pretty good solution, and it ends up with a very sleek looking phone. But the problem was that these bottom chins were massive, because they were housing quite a bit of technology. So that's why the Essential phone decided to go with the notch trend. And yeah, you can see that it's even late 2018, it's still a design that holds up very well. And we're even now seeing phones just starting to catch up to this design trend. If we have a look at the Oppo R17, that is going with this, what they're calling the water drop notch design. And obviously the bottom chin is a bit smaller than what we see on the Essential phone. But they're finally now sort of starting to realize that that's probably the more ideal looking notch, and everyone's loving the look of these new notches. And the other thing is that the upcoming OnePlus 6T, as you guys may or may not know, Oppo and OnePlus sort of share the same manufacturing parent company, and so often at least the front of the phones of Oppo and OnePlus devices tend to look the same. So the rumor is that in the upcoming OnePlus 6T, this is what we're going to be seeing, that same water drop notch design. And obviously a smaller chin, but obviously very much looking like the Essential phone, and yet this phone was released a year ago. So that's the crazy thing that I want to sort of get out of the way first off. If you're worried about design, if design is a big priority for you, then the Essential phone holds up today, and it holds up probably going into next year as well. The bottom chin, yes, it is slightly bigger than what I think a chin should be. But again, you've got to take in mind that this was released a year ago. It was the first device to really do the notch design, so they were experimenting a little bit, and it is a bit of a bummer that Essential has decided not to release, at least for the time being, not releasing an Essential phone 2, because I think they would come out with an even better design that would, yeah, look amazing. One of the downfalls though with the design of the Essential phone is this this earpiece speaker grill up the top here. You can see it looks pretty sleek in the photos, in the press coverage and things like that. But after using it for a little while, it actually starts to deteriorate quite quickly, and it's quite a common issue, and it's happened on my phone. The earpiece grill starts to chip away because it's so exposed, because of the system, the design of it. It does seem to sort of deteriorate quite quickly, and it no longer looks as sleek. Now, you can't really tell in videos. I'll try and hide it as well from time to time, but it is irritating. If you're someone who's really focused on the design of your phone and you like looking at it each day, and I feel like I'm in that boat somewhat, then it will irritate you. So that's something that I would love to have seen fixed, and I'm really interested to see how the Oppo and the OnePlus phones handle that, because they're obviously now having to cram their earpiece speaker up the top as well. But yeah, hopefully they do it in a more refined way that's not so susceptible to receiving dust and whatnot in that earpiece grill, because that has been a bit of a bummer. As well as that, the LCD display, it's not an OLED, it is LCD, and that is a bit of a con on my part, from my perspective anyway. I know, prior to the iPhone 10 last year, all of the iPhones were LCDs, and that was the argument as well when the Essential phone was released, that iPhone does it, so why is it so bad on the Essential phone? And it's not that bad, but coming from an OLED panel, I definitely think you will notice it. Obviously the blacks aren't true black. And so when your phone at night, it has this great, always on display, but when that pops up in the middle of the night, it lights up the whole room, believe it or not, even though it's just a black background with a tiny bit of text on it. And that is the downfall of having an LCD panel. So let's jump over to the specs here for a moment though, because obviously specs are a question when it comes to whether or not a phone is still worth buying. And you can see that it does have a, like I said, the LCD, IPS LCD display. The screen resolution though, despite the LCD, is 1312 by 2560 pixels, which means it's very sharp. And I have noticed that. I have really enjoyed the crispness of this display, particularly given that it is a fairly small phone. So if you're used to coming from those tall displays like the OnePlus 6 and the Samsung Galaxy phones, this will feel quite small in the hand. So keep that in mind. The other thing I wanted to talk about is that it's got Snapdragon 835 and it's an octa-core CPU. This thing is very fast, and in particular, I think the reason for that, and my favorite feature of this phone, is the software. So it is pretty much as stock an experience as you can get. In fact, I would say that it is almost like an Android One device. And I've seen some other people ask Essential that, does Essential fall into that Android One category? And I think it pretty much does. So if you're someone who loves stock Android as much as I do, then I actually think that you will really enjoy the software experience on this device. I prefer the software experience over the top of Oxygen OS. On top of Oxygen OS, I have made it known in recent videos that Oxygen OS is still good. It's still the best out of all the custom skins, but it's definitely not as good as stock Android in my opinion. And then the whole reason I bought this phone is because even though Essential have sort of said we're not releasing another phone, at least for the time being, they are still outrageously fast on the software updates. So you guys may or may not know that this phone is now, and it has been for a month, running Android 9.0 Pie, and it's already been given a September security patch as well. The security patch was actually released quicker than what Google did there. So there's some wizardry going on over at Essential. They were asked this in their recent AMA on Reddit, how are you getting it out so quickly? And they basically said, look, we got the final patches from Google 2 weeks prior, and we just had our team testing it like crazy, and we were able to release it on the same day as Google. And it's just crazy. And that is the whole reason I bought this phone. And that actually, to me, makes this device quite attractive. And that's the reason I picked it up. I wanted a device to do some coverage on Android 9.0 Pie with, and this is the device I ended up going with, because aside from that, it's the Pixel phones, and I'm sort of hanging out for the Pixel 3 at this point. So yeah, for me, I think that the software experience of the Essential phone makes it a really appealing device. And I think a lot of you who, if you know that you like stock Android, you will really enjoy this phone. Now, in terms of some other things to chat about really quickly, and I'll answer your questions in a moment. I can see they're coming through in the comments there, so thanks for sending them through. Keep sending them, because I'll come to them in a moment. But the big question and the big issue with the phone when it was released was the camera. And then since then, it's sort of been put off. It's been put as a dedicated app that you can actually update on the Google Play Store, rather than only getting updates through software updates. And that was a really smart move by Essential, because it means they could sort of send updates just to the camera without having to send whole software updates. And I actually think that the camera is quite good. And I do also have the Google camera mod on the Essential phone. And I often take a photo back and forth between both apps if I'm in a scenario that I think is fairly challenging. And I don't have any samples here today, but I can post some on Twitter later on if you're interested. But I think the camera is decent, and it's actually coming from my OnePlus 5T, which also didn't have the most phenomenal camera in the world, but it wasn't the worst. It certainly didn't get the criticism that the Essential phone got. I think that the camera is on par with the OnePlus 5T. So take that for what it is. It's not gonna blow any minds with the quality or the dynamic range and things like that, but it has seen a lot of improvements. And if you're worried about the camera quality being incredibly subpar, then you don't have to be, because it's actually fairly good. So keep that in mind. The camera isn't that bad. It's also still getting updates, and portrait mode is decent. And whilst it's not, it's not worth a $699 cost, at $315 for the Essential phone. So let me just bring the browser back up here. $310. That is absolutely mind blowing, and the camera is 100%. It's above that price tier. So the camera is good. The design is good. The LCD panel, not my favorite, but that is more so just a preference thing. I think in the future, I'd love to see all phones with OLED panels. But yeah, it is actually quite a good bang for your buck phone, in my opinion. Aside from that, let me just quickly check. I had a few other things that I wanted to chat about. And I think I might have covered everything so far. But to answer the question now, is the phone worth buying at this point in 2018, particularly with all the smartphones that are about to be released in October? Yes, I actually do think it is worth it, particularly for $310. This thing will hold up for another year or so without looking outdated. And they've also announced that it's going to be getting the next major software update as well, Android Q. So you've got lots of software updates guaranteed for the future, and that's more than Samsung can necessarily promise for its current flagships. They're not even running Android 9.0 Pie. The Note 9, the S9 and whatnot, they're not even running 9.0 Pie. So for that reason alone, I do think this phone is worth buying right now. I think it's going to hold up in terms of its design. I'm really, keeping my fingers crossed that they will release some form of a second phone, whether it's now or a year into the future or whatever, because I do like Essentials MO, keeping things clean, and just a pure experience. But yeah, it's a shame that they decided that they couldn't really afford to release a second phone. But I do think this phone is worth buying. Obviously, it doesn't have a headphone jack. That is a bit of a shame. But again, with the OnePlus 6T, which was, apart from the Galaxy devices, the OnePlus devices seem to be the only ones still holding on to that in that sort of mid-tier flagship level, and now they're getting rid of it with the OnePlus 6T. So for me, if you're thinking about the OnePlus 6T as your next purchase because of that updated design, I think the Essential phone is going to give it a run for its money. I was actually really excited for the OnePlus 6T, and then when they announced that they were getting rid of not only the rear fingerprint sensor in favor of an in-display fingerprint sensor, but also they're doing that because and they're getting rid of the headphone jack as a result, and for a slightly bigger battery. I was a bit bummed, to be honest. So yeah, I think that the Essential phone is going to give the OnePlus 6T a run for its money, particularly if you're looking for fast performance. And yeah, I certainly think that it's worth checking out if you're interested in stock Android in particular. I do have a link below if you want to go check out the Amazon page. And some other things as well. But yeah, let me know your questions now. I might hand it over to you guys. And yeah, let's have a bit of a chat. Hopefully you found that helpful. But yeah, let's go through some questions. So I'm just gonna come up the top here and see how we go. Thanks guys for all your comments as well. It's awesome to see so many people on board and involved in the live stream. Okay, here we go. Luke, I've been thinking about getting the phone. One of my favorite designs, nothing like it since launch. And you're watching, it's 3:40 p.m. in California. Awesome. Yeah, that is the thing. Is that you'd think if you're buying a 1-year-old smartphone that the design just wouldn't hold up, and yet it does, and it's awesome. It really is. It was ahead of its time, that design. Okay, someone's watching from, Brett is watching from his new Essential phone. Awesome, good to hear. Actually, that is one thing that is annoying with the notch. Let me know if you've got a OnePlus 6T or another phone with a notch. I have used a few, but not in the same, sort of currency of what I've been using the Essential phone with. When you're watching, because I create my videos on YouTube in that widescreen format, and when I watch them on the Essential phone, it won't let you go into the notch. You can't even zoom to fill. And so it actually uses a smaller window, which is really frustrating. Let me know if you found that same experience from your side. Congrats on 80k subs. Thank you, lover of tech. Appreciate that. Yeah, Luke again says it's insane how much the price has dropped, more than half. Yeah, and look, they can't be making a lot of money on each of their devices now. I think they probably are trying to cut their losses. They're almost selling them, at cost price. But yeah, I think they made a big mistake launching it at that $699 flagship price level. If they had come out with a $499 price point, man, that would have done some serious damage, I think. It's such a shame. Hindsight is a powerful thing. Yeah. E says they should have focused on a larger market. They never released it in India. Yeah, and that is the same for quite a few devices that are in their early stages. And it is what it is. It sucks that the Essential Phone 2 is cancelled. Yep, can't blame them. They started small. What colour Essential Phone do I have? I just have the, what's it called? The black version. But I've got a D brand skin on it. Not sponsored, by the way. I was just, it is a ceramic phone. Not technically, your traditional Gorilla Glass 5, but it still smudges like anything else. So I put a bit of a skin on there. Also, if you're interested, I spent a little while trying to find cases for it. If you are interested in a good case, the only one that I came across, I bought a few, is this one. I think it's called the Tudia Glass Frost or something case. I'll try and find a link and post it later on. But that is an awesome case, really sleek. So if you're interested in that, I'll put a link later on. Hey Sam, if you don't mind, after discussing, can you give us some detail about your setup? Yep, will do. Yeah, I'm looking forward to buying the OnePlus 6T. Smike says you have the 5T. Cool. Yeah, that should be a good upgrade. Again, I'm sad that they're getting rid of the rear-mounted fingerprint sensor. I hosted a poll over on Twitter a couple of days ago asking what you guys thought, whether or not you prefer, in-display fingerprint sensors, this new technology. I just think about, Samsung's fingerprint sensors when they first came out with the Galaxy S5, however many years ago, and they were so slow. You had to sort of swipe your finger on it. It was so slow. And I think that's what we're sort of going to experience for a little while with the in-display fingerprint sensors. Just slow, and I want a fast fingerprint sensor. OnePlus have always been very fast though, so who knows? Maybe it's going to be a super fast fingerprint sensor. And they're talking about some sort of combination of Face ID with or Face Unlock with the fingerprint in-display fingerprint sensor. Maybe that will speed things up. It's going to be, I think, a somewhat it's a fake speed experience if that makes sense. Okay, Bruno says, I hate notches. I prefer the solutions in Mi Mix 3 and on a Magic 2 for full screen. I also don't mind small bezels like S9, S9 Plus. Prefer that to notches any day. Fair enough. Yeah, it is a fairly polarizing thing. Unfortunately, for people like yourself, that has been where the design trend has gone with pretty much 95% of smartphones. But yeah, I actually don't mind the notch. I think it gives the phones character. Certainly not as much anymore now that everyone and their dog is doing it. But I actually don't mind it. Particularly the Essential Phone. These small water drop notches that are about to come out. If you miss it, let me put these screen captures on the screen for a moment. Yeah, the upcoming. Well, this is the current Oppo R17, but then the rumored OnePlus 6T. Don't you just think that looks a lot more sleek than those sort of wider notches that we've been seeing? Well, I do anyway. So I'm fine. I'm fine with notches. Just jumping through the comments here. Luke says, has speed gotten any better since launch? Certainly hasn't gotten any slower. Although I didn't have the phone at launch either. So it's a very smooth device, particularly given that it's running near vanilla version of Android. Why didn't they come up? Smike says, why didn't they come up with a better idea than notches? Yeah, look, that there are some alternate ideas out there. Again, the Xiaomi Mi Mix 2 and whatnot, with having that chin down the bottom. And then hopefully in a year or two, we'll be seeing the sort of under display front-facing cameras and sensors and whatnot, and that will be very interesting. Cool, just jumping down. Tejik Belgas, sorry if I've gotten your name wrong there. Between the Essential Phone and the Google Pixel 2016, which would you choose? 100% the Essential Phone. Google Pixel 2016's design is very outdated, and you know, if design's not a big thing for you, maybe, but yeah, really, they're similar sized phones. They've got very similar software experiences, so I would definitely say the Essential phone. That's just my opinion, though. And actually, that was another thing I wanted to quickly talk about. You know, with the rumored Google, you know, all the Pixel 3 XL leaks, and that sort of design, that notch design that we're seeing. I'm going to open this up here on the screen. Let me just jump over here. So this notch here, everyone complains about how deep into the phone it goes, and that's a fair complaint. But I think it's actually a similar depth than the Essential phone. I posted about this on Twitter a few weeks ago. I think it's a similar depth, and what I mean by that is that if we compare that with the, you know, OnePlus 6T's potential notch that's coming out in the R17, they are quite shallow notches, which means the status bar is the same as what we've always had with previous devices in terms of its size. Whereas the Essential phone and the Pixel 3 XL, they're going to have quite large status bars. Now, because I've been using the Essential phone for quite a while, I actually don't mind it. It's I don't think it's a big issue. So I'm not too scared about the Google Pixel 3 XL having a deep notch. The chin size looks fairly similar as well. So I actually think that's why I think the Essential phone holds up so well, because A, the design is so similar to what we're seeing with the potential upcoming Pixel 3 XL, but also the software. You know, it's getting software updates on the same day as Google is releasing theirs. So it's pretty much like a Nexus device at this point. What about the Razer phone? Where did it go? Yeah, I think the Razer 2, I never tried it, but the Razer 2 is potentially coming in October, I think. Could be interesting to see what happens with that. How is the baby, Omar? Thank you for that. Yeah, he's doing really well. He's sleeping at the moment. He's really healthy, so thank you. Arnold says, what do you think about the Poco F1? Yeah, awesome. I love that. I think it's a campaign from Xiaomi, where they're sort of trying to do what OnePlus did when they first released their phone, and that is selling a phone for not much profit at all, but it is making waves. It's got Snapdragon 845 chipset inside, which is the same amount of RAM as the, you know, Note 9 for you know, a third of the price. It's phenomenal. I love that. They'll start increasing their prices soon with the F2 and so forth. Essential phone's portrait mode is actually pretty good. This is Maestri. Sorry if the name pronunciation thing, if you've got an interesting username or a name that I don't recognize, I apologize. I'm doing my best. Essential phone's portrait mode is actually pretty good from what I've seen. Gcam is also a good step up. Yeah, it 100% is. It's as good as, I would say, the OnePlus 5T's portrait mode, if not a little bit better, potentially. Alex says, I have a Huawei Mate 10. You think the Essential phone is better? I will always say a phone with near stock Android is better than any Huawei or Xiaomi or even Poco phone. And that is the controversial thing. The Poco phone, I'm a little bit gutted that they came out with that skin on top of it. It looks okay. It's not the heaviest skin I've ever seen in my life. It's probably better than Samsung's skins, but yeah, I still always prefer a stock Android experience. It is what it is. I'm sold out. Yeah. Smike says, I think they should start working on the Essential phone too. I agree. I hope that they're sort of behind the scenes, they're working on it. Yeah, E says, details on my Essential phone setup. Okay, I'll quickly talk you through this. We have the, what is it? The Lawnchair V2 alpha release software home screen launcher on it at the moment. I was literally 2 days ago using Lean Launcher still, but then the update didn't seem to have the Google feed working, so I just quickly switched over to Lawnchair V2. It's very stock Android-esque. So, I mean, if you go back and watch my What's on my Android phone from a month or two ago, it's pretty similar to that. At the moment, I've got a wallpaper, which I don't remember where I got it from, but yeah, very stock-based setup. Again, I've still got the another widget up the top here for that at a glance widget. Yeah. nothing else really to report about my setup. Apologies, it's a bit boring. Okay, just jumping down here. Whoop, the comment section has just jumped down. Hang on. Okay. Yeah, so Essential Phone got cancelled. The Essential Phone 2 got cancelled because they didn't get many sales, and that was unfortunately due to the fact that that they released it at $699 US, which is now competing with Google Pixel 2, Samsung phones, and so forth. Yeah, they got rid of the headphone jack. Yep. I'm currently rooting my LG V30, so yeah, that would probably be a good experience. LG doing good stuff. Not a big fan of their skin either, but it's not as bad as Samsung's, although it's a bit similar. JKB says, I'm thinking of getting the 6T or Pixel. I'm guessing you mean the Pixel 3 XL. Whoa, that's a tough one. I am hoping to get my hands on both, although I might not be able to. It's so hard to get my hands on phones here in Australia. They're a lot more expensive than they are in the US. I would say, look, if you're a fan of stock Android, I would go the Pixel 3 XL. I mean, I actually don't hate the design rumors, although I am, fingers crossed, all this stuff about the Pixel Ultra. If you don't know what I'm talking about there, that potentially Google has faked the Pixel 3 XL leaks, or they're somehow trolling us, and they're about to release a fully bezel-less phone called the Pixel Ultra. I think now at this point, I don't think they will, but for a moment there, I was convinced. So Maestri says that the phone goes to $250 as well. Yeah, they often do, Essential Phone that is, they do some flash sales, and and it goes down to $250. It's very affordable. Whoops. Yeah, the OnePlus 6 stable Pi ROM just dropped. I've seen that. Looks really good. Pi looks awesome on the OnePlus 6. I'm a fan of that. I'm glad that they did still integrate the newer gesture navigation based system, rather than only limiting you to their own gesture based navigation system. I was never a big fan of their gesture based navigation system. It was a bit just unrefined. I think the OnePlus 6 is actually a very phenomenal phone. When the OnePlus 6T comes out, it'll be interesting to see whether the prices drop a little bit on the OnePlus 6. Often their prices hold for quite a while, so they probably won't drop. But I think the OnePlus 6 right now is a very good phone, a very interesting phone to potentially still get. That design, it's a slightly larger notch than the potential upcoming OnePlus 6T. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's very interesting. Tijik says, have you ever considered making a Nova setup series organized by category, something like minimalistic, productivity, black and white? I kind of do organize them into categories. I don't sort of say that in the episode title because, I don't know. I feel like that's just been my thing now, is to just go by episodes. But in my own head, when I'm putting them together, I try and categorize some similar looking setups. And so I remember, a little while ago, I was doing setups that were based around the wallpaper, around a really cool looking wallpaper. And the most recent one, I had a couple that were KLWP setups. So yeah, I am kind of keeping that at the back of my mind. All right, cool. Maestri says, if Essential continues to be a company that makes phones, they should go the same route, compete with OnePlus in terms of price, quality, and software support. Yeah, I agree. They should go the same route. Although it'll be interesting, OnePlus keeps jacking up their prices every phone, and that's fair enough. Their phones are getting better, but when's that going to end? At what point will they stop jacking up their prices for every release? Otherwise, before long, they're going to be at the same price point as as the flagships that they're trying to bring down. Alex says, I have the mate. Oh, I think I already answered your question from before, Alex. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, E says, Tadea makes good cases. I'm using one. Yeah, Tadea, good case company. Not sponsored. Feel free to reach out, Tadea, if you're watching. 2K says, Sam, the godfather of customization. Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that title. Gizmo Ground says the update process, I'm guessing you're talking about the OnePlus 6, the update process from Open Beta 3 to Stable Pi is really tricky. Don't want to install a custom recovery yet. Okay, interesting. Fair enough. That's a shame. They should make that a little bit easier for users, particularly if you're on the Open Beta, because the Open Beta is designed to help them, right? Yeah. Mystery says OnePlus hosted a poll about headphone jacks and it's gone. Yeah, that's right. Back in March, I think just prior to the release of the OnePlus 6, they hosted a poll on Twitter asking whether users still liked the headphone jack, and it was overwhelmingly, something like 90% in favor of headphone jacks. And, 6 months later, they're getting rid of it. So that's a shame. Yeah. Smike says, I think the in-display fingerprint sensor will be kind of funky. I agree. I think that the technology is exciting, but I think at this point, and I'm guessing that you can't fit both in the one device. But I would have liked both options, rear and in-display. Again, I think that's probably wishing for it too much. Someone's got to make the plunge, and OnePlus is doing it. Surprising, to be honest, because I like the rear-mounted fingerprint sensor. I think it is a long-term solution. I don't think we necessarily need in-display fingerprint sensors. That's just my opinion, though. I used to think that I always wanted a home button on a phone, and that was a priority. I liked having a hardware home button when I had the Samsung Galaxy devices, but then switching over to phones with software navigation buttons, I was sold. So who knows? Maybe they'll change my opinion. It needs to be quick, but I actually think it's more comfortable putting the finger on the back of the phone rather than sort of reaching over the front. I could be wrong. We'll see what happens. It'll be interesting. Gizmo says the in-display fingerprint sensor is really just form over functionality. Yeah, although again, I don't think the one on the rear looks that bad. That's just me, though. Yeah, why are they even working on in-display fingerprint sensors when they already have a really fast Face ID? Well, it's because their Face Unlock, the OnePlus Face Unlock, is just using the front-facing camera, and it's not that secure. It's quite unsecure, so you can't use it for payment methods. That's why. So the Face ID on the iPhones is the only form of security on that device, and it is very secure because of the biometric sensors they're using and whatnot. Whereas on OnePlus, it's just using the front-facing camera, so it's a little more susceptible to being tricked. Yeah, Gizmo, yep, you said that as well. Jugal says, what would you choose between OnePlus and Samsung? OnePlus, because of the software. The comments just jumped down, excuse me. Definitely OnePlus for me. Coming back to that, I can see a few people putting their opinions down as well. Alex says, if you had to choose a new phone, which one would you choose right now? If without the current releases that are about to come out, it would be the OnePlus 6. Yeah, I think it's really, really cool, particularly with the Android Pie update. That has what's sort of got me back on the OnePlus train. Okay. I'm watching this video. Omar says, I'm watching this video on the Mi A1 stock Android team. I'm so on board for the Android One movement. I think that it would be awesome to see every single phone coming forward have their own version and then an Android One version as well. I'd be so interested to see what the sales would be like, particularly with Samsung phones. If they released Note 9 Android One, that'd be so interesting. I'd definitely be much more on board that. Miguel says, putting camera out of the equation, would the Essential phone be a better buy than the Pixel 2? How much is the Pixel 2 XL these days? Let's look it up. Let me jump over to my browser here so you can see what we're doing. Let's jump on Amazon. Whoops. Pixel 2 XL. Okay, so 64 gig, 540. So it's $230 more than the Pixel, than the Essential phone. Yeah, I would actually recommend the Essential phone if we're not talking about camera, but the camera is so damn good on the Pixel. So that is a big thing. Yeah, it's hard to sort of leave that out of the equation. But yeah, without the cameras, if neither of them had cameras, Yeah, the essential phone. Arnold says, I just installed the Pocophone launcher and it looks great. Yeah, the launcher itself is pretty good. It's everything else, such as the quick settings panel, the settings themselves, the settings menus. Everything aside from the launcher is what gets me. Because on any phone, the Pocophone, Samsung phones, you can put a custom launcher on it. So the launcher isn't the thing that bothers me. It's everything else. Animations even. Things like... this thing is such the smallest feature in the world. I'm going to try and get my ambient display to show up here. If I unlock that, I don't know if you can see that. That might have been too small for you to see. But let's have a quick look here. I'll just try and get my ambient display working. And if I now sort of wake that up, notice how the clock moves into its original position. Those sorts of things are just so clean, and I love them. I'm a big fan of that. That's sort of the stock Android experience. But yeah, on OnePlus devices, I really don't like the ambient display. And yeah, Samsung Galaxy devices, the skins and all that, it's just too much for me. Gizmo says the Pixel 3 will have wireless charging according to some leaks, XDA stated. Yeah, I'm not a massive, that is not a deal breaker for me. Can someone confirm for me, does the Pocophone have NFC? I don't think it does off the top of my head. I haven't watched a few videos lately on it, but if it doesn't, that is now close to the point of a deal breaker for me. If a phone does not have NFC, the main reason being that I have been saved one or two times by having NFC on my phone. Being able to, I remember there was one time I had an empty tank of petrol, and my wife had taken my wallet in the car. I had left it in there, unfortunately, and I just had my phone, and I went to the petrol station and I paid using my phone. That was the first time I ever paid using NFC on my phone, and from then on I was like, this is a pretty must-have feature. E says, thoughts about digital well-being. I am fully on board that. In fact, in my next episode of Top Android Apps, we're going to be talking about an alternate app. Because I'm on board digital well-being and, screen time. What's the Apple one called? Screen time or something like that. Yeah, on board. We are in a day and age where we're addicted to our devices, so it's good to be thinking about, how can we bring that back a little bit so that we're not so heavily dependent on our phones. What apps do I have on my phone? Just head back to my What's on my Android video, because that gives you a pretty good rundown. It hasn't changed since then, really. A couple of extra ones. I've always got top Android apps in and out, but aside from that, my mainstay ones haven't really changed. Jonathan says, would recommend the 6T just for the cheaper price and basically stock Android with some added features. Just a shame for the headphone jack preventing me personally from getting it. Yeah. I didn't think that I would miss the headphone jack as much as I have. I actually have found that the adapter on the Essential phone hasn't been super reliable. There have been times where I've plugged it in with the headphones, hit play on the music, and it's still coming out of the speaker. And, that can be pretty dangerous depending on where you are. So, yeah, just doesn't seem to be as reliable than a dedicated headphone jack. So that is a shame. I am a bit bummed about the OnePlus removing the headphone jack, the 6T. When is Pi rolling out to the 5T, Wissam says. I read that it is coming. I'm guessing by the end of 2018 or the start of 2019. That was a similar time frame compared to what we had last year. Yeah. Okay, just scrolling down the comments here. Okay, AJ says, what feature is better for a second phone camera lens? Optical zoom, wide angle, dedicated portrait, or others? Either optical zoom or wide angle. Definitely not these dedicated portrait ones, because as we've seen with the Google Pixel phones, you can do portrait mode just software based, and it's pretty damn good as well. So yeah, something of note: optical zoom or wide angle. Otherwise, I mean, the Essential phone has a monochrome sensor, so black and white. And yeah, you can get more detail supposedly, but for the most part, just whack a black and white filter on it and you're going to get a pretty similar looking photo. Okay, JKB says, I installed Project Treble on my 5T hang on a sec, the comments just changed. So I have stock Android Pie. That must have been a custom ROM you're talking about, I'm guessing. Let me know. Will Nicholson says, would you move from a Samsung Galaxy S7 Edge to an Essential phone? Yes, I would. I personally would anyway. I mean, again, you've got to keep in mind that the software experience is my biggest attraction when it comes to buying a smartphone or using a smartphone as my daily driver. So keep that in mind. If it's not for you, then maybe it's not worth it. Although the Galaxy S7 Edge, yes, is quite an outdated design now anyway. So yeah, I would definitely go to the Essential phone if you're looking for a cheaper upgrade. Omar says, what do you think about the new iPhones? I've got one coming in, actually, believe it or not. Outrageously expensive. I wouldn't have bought it out of my own pocket. I'm partnering with a company for it, which is very handy. So yeah, I'll let you know. I'm open to what they're doing, but man, the price point is crazy, and it saddens me that people just keep buying them at that price. When's it going to stop? What are we going to be spending $5,000 on phones, in 5 years? Omar, thank you. No NFC in Poco phones. So, okay, that is a bit of a deal breaker for me. I don't know if it is for you. If you own a Poco phone, or if you're thinking about owning a Poco phone, you might not need NFC. You might not do those sort of Google Pay or use Google Pay or anything like that. So, might not be a deal breaker for you, depending on where you live. But big thing for me, just for the security of knowing that it's there as a backup. That is one thing about the Essential phone, two things about the Essential phone actually that I didn't mention, and that is that the lowest brightness setting is definitely not dark enough. So I've actually had to install a third-party app called Night Owl to get it darker at night. So that's a bit of a bummer. Apparently they're going to be fixing it in a future software update. The other thing is the lowest volume setting is also not low enough. It's like all of a sudden it just stops because you've muted it, and you think there should be plenty more steps to go down. So that they are things that are hopefully going to be fixed because I think they're software based. Although you never know, sometimes these displays are limited in how dark they can go. Okay, just jumping down to through the comments. Yeah, Alex says, wish there was a stock Android ROM for the Mate 10. Are you sure there's not? I'm sure you've done some Googling. But yeah, I would definitely think about install. I'm always a bit reluctant to do custom ROMs. You're not going to have the reliability of ongoing software updates. But yeah, I would probably do that. I saw there was a Android Pie stock Android ROM for the, I don't know if it was the Note 9 or I think it was the S9. Looked awesome. I would do that. Yeah, M4RC3L says, what do you think about the Google Pixel 3? Is there an Ultra? I certainly hope so. I don't think so anymore. Although, as I mentioned before, there was a time when I did think, I was convinced, particularly when, I think it's John Prosner from Front Page Tech. Cool channel, really, really cool channel. You should check him out. Funny guy. He posted that video saying that Google contacted him about using some of his ranting videos about the upcoming Pixel 3 XL design. They wanted to use those videos, for their marketing campaign or for the launch event. And at that time, I thought, man, they're absolutely Pixel Ultra. But now I think it's probably more likely that they're gonna take the mickey out of themselves, which is good. That's probably the approach to go. Just be upfront and say, yeah, look, we had to do a deep notch. I'm guessing they're going to say it's for they've got dual cameras supposedly, and also for the stereo speakers. So look, we'll see. But I'm still keen to check out the Google Pixel 3 XL. I would probably use it as my daily driver, I'm guessing. Yeah, Gizmo says, I remember Carl Pei reassuring everyone about that. Carl is the CEO of OnePlus. Reassuring everyone about keeping the jack at the London launch event, and 4 months later, boom, Type-C. Baffles me. Yeah. It's like what the Google Pixel did when they initially launched their first device, in that they were sort of taking the mickey out of Apple, saying the headphone jack, not surprisingly new, and then a year later they got rid of it. But this is even worse because OnePlus has been like, we are staying true to the headphone jack, and now they're getting rid of it. So they've dug themselves their own grave, really, by the way that they've hyped their own use of the of the headphone jack, and now they're getting rid of it. They seem like hypocrites a little bit, which sounds harsh, but unfortunately that is what it is. Yeah, E says Pocophone was made for India, I guess, and we don't use NFC here. Okay, yeah, that was my suspicion. For the Western side of things, yeah, NFC seems to be a little bit more popular, and I have read about that it's NFC is not so much a thing for the Indian market. So thanks for that. Omar says, I have no NFC on my Mi A1. I don't feel that is a problem. Cool. And it isn't the biggest, it's not the biggest deal breaker. There are other things that are bigger in my mind, but it is something that I would feel a little more nervous about. Will you make a video about the widgets and stuff you use for your essential phone? Maybe, but at the moment it's very similar. In fact, it's almost exactly the same as my recent What's on my Android video. I know that was on my OnePlus 5T, but I pretty much have the same setup on every phone, no matter the phone. So go and watch that if you're interested. It's the same setup. Ruel says, what do you think about the LG G7 with Android One? Very much on board. Although, was it that device? There was a bit of a, I could be wrong about this, so apologies. There was still a bit of a skin. Or no, maybe it was the Samsung Android One device. It still seemed to have a skin. But the LG G7, no, it wasn't the LG G7. I remember watching a few videos on it. Looked awesome. Yeah, it looked really good. I'm super on board. Very interested to know what the sales have been like with that phone. Kiss My Bullet Dude says, is the only thing you have against the Galaxy series the software? Pretty much. Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, I know that seems very petty, but at the end of the day, I think the design and the performance of a phone, you sort of, well, not the performance, but definitely the design of a phone, you move on. I think Samsung, for a long time, were leading the charge with the design. Not in my opinion anymore, but, that's up for debate. But for me, the day-to-day experience of using a phone is the software experience. And when I owned my previous Samsung Galaxy S6 a few years ago now, I was always installing launchers and skins and things to make it look and feel as close to stock Android as possible. And at that point, yeah, I think I needed to ask myself the question, is it really worth having a Galaxy phone if I'm just going to be trying to customize it? And ever since I switched over to OnePlus, I've never looked back. And now, Essential phone, even more so. I think I definitely could go back to OnePlus. Samsung phones, I don't think I would enjoy using them as my daily driver. And that's a pretty big call to make. But yeah, it is what it is. All right, we're nearly at the end of this live stream. I'll just answer a few more questions. Ajay says, will the notch eventually die out, or is it here to stay? It's a good question. I think we're still a fair way off from seeing the under-display, cameras and sensors and things like that. But hopefully in the future we will see that technology come through. But it could be a good 2, 3, maybe more years until we see that. So I think now what we're going to see over the next year or so is this sort of water drop design trend. I'll bring this up again just for those who are late to the stream. Yeah, this water drop design trend, which is so similar to the Essential phone. Again, that's why I keep saying they were so far ahead of their time. They were a year ago, and we're now starting to see this trend pop up in more recent smartphones. So yeah, I think that's the trend we're going to see over the next year or so, and potentially up until the point we get where it's all under display. It'll be interesting to see though. Eric says, why don't Xiaomi and OnePlus 6 put Android One on most phones? Should they? OnePlus 6, probably not worth it because it'll be such a similar software experience. In fact, I think that wouldn't be beneficial for them. But Xiaomi, yeah, I agree. They did though, didn't they? Isn't there? Yeah, I think the Mi A1, that's Xiaomi. So on most phones, yeah. I think that they should, but that's just me. A lot of people love the skins. And I think that's an iOS thing. They love iOS feel, just simple. But on Android phones, I'm not a big fan of that sort of iOS feel. It's never as good as what it is on Apple devices. M4RC3L says, I love your high quality videos. It's 1:31 in the morning in Germany, but it is worth it. Thank you very much. I apologize. We're going to wrap up here soon so you can get to sleep. Hakim says, Poker F1, is it a good buy? Yeah, I think it is. Would I use it as a daily driver? Probably not. But I certainly, I haven't used it myself, but based on everything I've seen, I think it is a good buy. Although, again, the Essential phone is a very similar cost. It's got a slightly outdated chipset, but with the stock Android experience, I think it's going to be as smooth, if not smoother, than the Poco F1. E says, it's 5 a.m. in India. I haven't completed my homework, but watching Sam Beckman live stream. Thank you. That is dedication. Hashtag dedication. Luke, did you hear about the new Alexa devices? No. Gizmo, the G7 ThinQ was a banger of a phone and pretty underrated one at that. If only they had a stock version of Android, I think they're really on something, which they do. I think they have an Android one. That's what we were talking about before. And LG's phones are always underrated. I think they're awesome. Omar says, would you like if they can use stock Android in every phone under 300? Yeah. Yeah, why not make life easier for themselves and, get rid of the software development team? That sounds pretty harsh. Or put them into manufacturing or something, or design. And yeah, just do Android One. Surely that would make things a lot more streamlined. Yeah, I've never really understood the reason why you'd put a big skin on a phone, apart from wanting to control the experience for the user, which is probably their reason. Okay, guys. Thank you so much for tuning into this live stream. We're going to wrap it up there. I've answered lots of questions about the Essential phone. Hopefully that helps. Do I think it's worth it in 2018 and into 2019? Yes, I do, particularly at its current price point of $315 US. And if you can find it for even cheaper, $250 US, from time to time it does come down, then it is no question such a great device. The design is going to hold up for a good year to come. And I think it's a very interesting device. It's a shame that at this point anyway, it looks like we're not going to be seeing an Essential phone 2. But thank you guys very much for tuning in. I appreciate all your comments, all your questions. If you missed the live stream, Yassine, I just see you're coming in at the end. Might just have to go back and catch the replay. But aside from that, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.